Welcome to the Postpartum Performance Podcast. If you're here to be empowered and encouraged, you're in the right place. I believe every woman deserves to learn who's in her corner, which is why this podcast was created, to share encouragement and intentional conversations around women's health, nutrition, and wellness for new mothers. In each episode, we will discuss ways for women to find truth for her health, to feel strong, and to be confident from the inside out. I'm your host, Dr. Lindsay Peczkowski, a performance physical therapist with a passion for teaching others about pelvic health and guiding mothers to build movement, confidence, and strength. I'm a lover of running and weightlifting and a healthy cooking enthusiast. All right, ladies, grab your coffee and settle in for an episode of the Postpartum Performance Podcast. Are you with me? Here we go. Hey, ladies, welcome back to the Postpartum Performance Podcast. Lindsay here, and we've got another great show for you today. Today we have on the show Justina Hausman-Kopp, and she is just a gem, a light, and just such a powerhouse mom. So we're going to be talking about things about hope and about raising little humans, and also racial identity and how your journey is your own. A little bit more about Justina. Justina is a stay-at-home mom living in the Twin Cities, Minnesota, with her husband, Matthew, and their quadruplet toddlers, Cora, Raphael, Theodore, and Benedict, as well as their energetic Bernedoodle, Millie. She is a 2013 graduate of the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota, where she studied Catholic Studies and Biology, and she currently serves on the advisory board for the Center for Catholic Studies. When she's not chasing her kids around, you can find her cruising around town with Starbucks in hand, listening to her favorite true crime podcasts. Ladies, I am seriously pumped for you guys to hear this one. She just has so much insight and knowledge and experience just about handling the chaos, being a mother of quads, and just taking life in stride. And I am just so excited to share her story with you all today. So without further ado, we're jumping into the show. Justina, welcome to the Postpartum Performance Podcast. We are talking about a lot of exciting things today. I'm excited to have you on the show because you have such a unique perspective as a mother, and also just what you're doing right now. So I would love for you to share with the listeners a little bit about yourself, personally, professionally, and what you're up to right now.
Thank you for having me. So I'm Justina. I am a 30-year-old mother living in Minnesota. I've been married to my husband, Matthew, for just over 5 years. And we have quadruplet 4-year-olds, one girl, Cora, and then we have 3 boys, Raphael, Theodore, and Benedict. And they keep me very busy.
I can imagine. Yeah. Yes. You're adorable, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, we also have a really insane but very good girl, Millie, our Bernedoodle puppy that we sort of impulse bought during the pandemic.
Good. Puppies are a great way.
Yeah, we just moved up our timeline a couple of months, so it's fine. She's great. She keeps us on our toes. So yeah, I stay pretty busy between all of those creatures, human and not. But besides that, the things that I do, or things that I really like doing, are speaking out about like social justice issues, like in particular racism, because I am a biracial woman. I'm half Kenyan, half white, and one of the things that has just really come up for me over the last few years, especially like once I got married and had kids, is just like, what is my racial identity? And what does that mean? Because now I have some biracial kids, and as we saw over the last year, like there's still a lot of work to be done. Things are not great, and so I'm just trying to do my best to sort of create a safer world for them, and speaking out. And I just want to be able to tell them that I did all that I could to just create something for them. And besides that, like, I'm really passionate about like feminism, healing, and like grief work. So much so that like I am hoping to go back to school this fall to pursue a career in marriage and family therapy. That was another thing that came out of this last year with like the pandemic and everything. It's just, and then like with the social movements that have come out too, is that we as a nation and as like communities have a lot of grief work that we need to be doing, because we are grieving. Like we're grieving the futures that we thought we were going to have. And like, we're grieving the year that we thought we were going to have. No one thought that 2020 was going to be the disaster that it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just even grieving that, or grieving, you know, the fact that like things just didn't pan out the way that we wanted, like either losing loved ones or not having the wedding we wanted, or just different things like that. And, also just like generational trauma, like within different communities, particularly like Black communities that have been facing like so much trauma and pain over the years, to like come in and enter into those to like build stronger communities. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, you're up to some good work. I love that, Justina. So we're going to dive in first on the family side of things. So like you said, you have quadruplets. How cool. When you guys found out that you were having multiples, what was the first thing that crossed your mind?
Well, the way that it sort of panned out in that first 6-week ultrasound, because I'd had a miscarriage like pretty early on in our marriage. And so this was, I miscarried at like 2.5 months into our marriage. And then looking at 7 months later, like at 7 months into our marriage, then having quadruplets, like in that first ultrasound there, really being nervous, because I really thought that like it was going to be an ectopic pregnancy, just because of like very specific pains I was having. And then just also being sort of traumatized by that first experience. Like I didn't get to like have like the super hopeful, like new mom experience that like I already knew what it meant to lose a baby. So I wasn't going into this thing. I was thinking like, okay, this could happen again. And so in that first ultrasound, she started, the sonographer starts labeling babies, and it just sort of happened like, oh, wouldn't it be funny? And I thought I saw like 4 gestational sacs. I was like, Justina, you did not study this. Like, don't.
Yeah, like leave it to the professionals.
Yeah, like stop trying to figure this out. And so she starts labeling them, and she's like laughing. And so my husband and I are just like, we're laughing because we're so happy that like, okay, not only is there like baby A, but baby A's got a strong heartbeat. Okay, there's baby B. Baby B's got a strong heartbeat. Baby C, wow, okay. And then like we start joking, like Matt's like, how are we going to do 3? Like, this is crazy. And I like said to him, I was like, actually what happens is like when a mother is pregnant with triplets, during the pregnancy, she grows a 3rd arm so that she can take care of that 3rd baby. And at first they got to baby D, and they saw what we thought was like a blighted ovum, like there's an empty gestational sac. But we realized later when the doctor came in that like we hadn't gotten a picture of baby C. So she goes back and takes a look and rechecks the 4th sac, and sure enough, there was baby D. And to this day, he is still just the ever elusive, ever the jokester. Like he's just, he's the one that keeps us on our toes the most.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. And really funny that his personality kind of fits how he was already way at the beginning.
Oh yeah. They all super fit, like how they behaved in ultrasounds and how they even fight like in utero. Like they're just like that now.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh my gosh. So you guys find out you're having multiples. Holy cow. What was your like mental process because of having a miscarriage before and then knowing now, okay, you're going to have 4 babies. Did you and Matt do anything like now that you're going into like marriage and family counseling? Was there any stuff that you started to do, even just like, okay, what could we be looking into, or how can we be really encouraging our relationship going into having a family now with 4 kids soon?
Yeah. It was a big exercise. That whole pregnancy, but especially that like first trimester was a huge exercise in hope. I am someone who really struggles with hope, and especially because I just throughout most of my life have struggled with depression and anxiety. So it was a situation where I really had to lean into hope and just dig into that like this could work out, you know, instead of like this could go wrong, to instead say this could work out. And I wasn't perfect at that. We you know, we had lots of conversations surrounding that and made some decisions like during the pregnancy about what that was going to look like for us. For example, we never had a baby shower because I was too anxious at the thought of having to return 1, 2, 3, or 4 car seats or something, you know, having to like go through that process. We didn't set up their cribs until they were about to come home from the hospital, because even still, like I was someone who just like really dove into the statistics of it all, and, you know, having a higher chance of miscarriage or stillbirth, or even just a higher chance of infant loss in that first year. Even though things kept going really well and we had like basically like a picture perfect situation, I still just like couldn't believe it, you know? And so that was really tough. But it really drew my husband and I closer together, just in terms of like, just knowing what we could handle and what we could face together, because there's no one who knows our situation like we do. No one who knows what it's like to raise these guys quite like we know how. And so it was just really, it was just really cool. We grieved a lot because during the quads pregnancy, we came across like our first baby's due date. And like, that was just such an odd thing to sit in, you know, to be like feeling these babies like kicking and moving, because I was starting to feel movement, I think at that point, or slightly afterwards, but then also thinking like I should be holding like a wiggly screaming baby in my arms. Was just so odd. But you know, it worked out, and they're here and they're healthy. They were born at 33 weeks. And did really excellently in the hospital. They were all home on the same day at 3 weeks old. So 36 weeks gestation. And their first year was perfect. Like we didn't have any health issues. We had our first health issues, not really, this last summer, because I had 2 kids that broke the same bone in the same arm within 6 days of each other. So
oh my God.
That was something.
They just wanted to be like the other one.
Yeah. And it was so sweet, because it was Cora broke hers first, and then Benedict broke his 6 days later, and he got a purple cast because Cora had a purple cast and he wanted to match her. And it was very, very sweet. But I mean, we've had stitches here and there, but no big health scares. So we are very lucky in that regard. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What advice would you give to mothers of multiples?
Okay. So we had postpartum doulas. If you can swing it in any way, if you can get your hands on a postpartum doula, I 1000% recommend it. They helped us get through that first year. I don't know what we would have done without them, even just like night help, because they really helped us with that so that we could at least a couple times a week get a full 8 hours. Besides that, like, you don't have to do it by yourself, and you really shouldn't be doing it by yourself. Like one of the things that I've been uncovering, even just in examining like racism in America, is like the one thing that we lost was the idea of like the multi-generational family. Like we really just zoomed in on the nuclear family, on a mom, dad, and however many kids you have, and you have your house, and you just like stay put. But it wasn't always like that. Like it was not uncommon for you to have like your parents or some family member living in with you. And so that was something that like I got to unfold and discover for myself, like in that first year, and definitely beyond. It's like having my mom close by and having the ability to lean on her in that way was just so great. And like our faith community really rallied around us. And that was so cool just to have so many people like really that like looked like hope for me. Like all these people like really believed in us and really believed in the kids and were so excited and just wanted to see us succeed. And so just like find your people and lean into that. Also join your local Moms of Multiples Facebook group.
Yeah.
At the very least, you can score some baby gear at a much lower price, but you can also just make friends who understand the unique challenges that you face. That's been just so valuable to me.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's really good advice. Cause I'm sure once finding out if you're having multiples, it's like, okay, let's figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Like, we're moving forward with this clearly, but like, how do we navigate that? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. That's awesome. Do you have any funny stories when from the children's first year of whether that's something that the kids were doing or something that like you or Matt did or anything like that, that kind of makes you laugh a little and made light of knowing that you guys had a lot going on in your household?
The first thing that came to mind was the day that we brought them home. We were expecting that, like, what they told us at first was they would likely come home around their due date. So we thought we had 5 to 7 weeks is what they told us. And so 2 of the kids were doing really well. And so they were like, they could probably go home this weekend. So we thought like, okay, Cora and Raphael are going to come home with us and, that'll be crazy. And then the next day we came in, they're like, Benedict's looking like he could come home this weekend too. And we're like, all right, cool. So we can bring 3 of them home. And then I started thinking like, okay, that's going to be weird logistically because I can't bring all these babies back. You're not allowed to bring them back in with you. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to figure out childcare or something at this point. Like someone's going to have to watch the kids while we're here with the other one. And then like the day before they were like, actually Theodore can come home with you too. Like he just rallied because he heard everyone was going home without him. And so like, there's this picture of us that's so sweet. Like we're standing in the hospital with like, we're each holding 2 car seats. And I look at that picture and I'm like, sweet summer children, you have no idea, referring to me and Matt, like you have no idea what's about to happen to you. and we got home and Matt like did a Facebook Live for people like to show like, okay, we're home and everything. And the process of like leaving the hospital like took longer than we thought. And we didn't even have a vehicle at this point that fit them all. We had to borrow Matt's parents' car because they had a minivan. Like we didn't have our minivan yet because we were, still deciding like,
time. Yeah.
Yeah. We thought we had like 2 more weeks. Eventually we did obviously have a vehicle that fits them all now. But Matt does this Facebook Live and it was past the kids' feeding time because they came home on a schedule, which was really awesome. But they were very hungry. And the instant he like got off of Facebook Live, chaos erupted. It was insane because it was just us and all these babies are screaming at us. We don't have our home routine yet. We only know how to take care of them in a hospital. And there's usually like, if something goes wrong, you're like, hey nurse.
Yeah. You're like, can you help us out over here?
Yeah. And if they didn't get enough food, like they could use the NG tube or something to like feed them. But we were beyond that. Like, that's why they'd send us home was because they could like get all their nutrition, through feeding. And so just like the pure chaos of that moment. And like, I will never forget like what that silence felt like once they all had bottles in their mouths and everything was like calm again. It was just wild. And it, you're just those first couple of weeks, it's just pure chaos. Like I hardly remember it all, but that really stands out to me as just like a purely hilarious moment.
Oh, I bet. Just like I can just see you guys like looking at each other like, oh my gosh, here we go.
And not knowing where anything was. Like, I'm like, where's their formula? Like, where are the bottles? Like, how do we do this?
Oh my gosh. Well, I commend you guys, man. You guys are rocking it with your kiddos and just being able to take that in stride. And That's so awesome. So awesome.
Thanks.
hmm So now that the kids are getting a little bit older, we're going to transition into kind of more stuff that you're doing now, which we were talking a little bit before about how you're really into some of the social justice stuff, and just sharing more about those types of things and wanting to leave a better place for your children as they get older. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about some of the projects that you have going on.
Yeah. So the big one that I'm working on right now is called the Augustine 1606 Initiative, and it's named. So I'm Catholic. My husband is Catholic, and so it's named after the first documented child that was baptized on what is now American land, and that was in St. Augustine, Florida. And so this it's so crazy to like go back and like see like on August 20th, 1606, like this little boy, Augustine, and like his parents, Augustine, also named Augustine, and his mother, Francisca, like bring this baby boy in to be baptized in this church. And so we named it after that and took that as our patron, and took that sweet boy as our patron. And what we're doing with this is we want to dive in on like the Black Catholic experience. This is something like for myself that's been really just sort of interesting, is that like we grew up in Rosemount, Minnesota. You know, it's a very, very like white middle class suburb. And the parish I went to that I grew up going to was also white middle class. And so there weren't a lot of, I didn't see myself reflected back at myself in my faith, that there was like white Jesus statues and white saints all over the place. And so I didn't know very many saints of color, let alone Black saints. And so this has just been fascinating for me because there's this whole history that I know nothing about. And so diving into that has been really cool. But then also learning about what other Black Catholics, whether that be African immigrants or descendants of American slavery that are here in the Twin Cities, and just learning about what their experience has been, good, bad, ugly, all of it we want to hear. And just shedding light on that, and hopefully we can move forward with like sharing more of these stories and diving into like what does racial equity look like in the church, and hopefully put something together and, you know, make a difference in that way. So I'm super excited about it. It's been fascinating just learning about people's journeys and where it's taken them. Like I always learn something about my own faith experience in those conversations. So we're having a big forum in a couple of weeks here. We're getting a lot more people in the room together to discuss this too. So it's pretty cool.
That's fantastic. And that's going to be live in February, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Beginning of February is when the first one goes live. And then we're doing a forum 3 weeks later with that. So
awesome. With all of the stuff that kind of with 2020 and everything that went on, regardless of pandemic, but also with all the like social justice stuff and injustice going on, how have you gone about, I mean, I know your kids are still pretty young, but how have you gone about ways to incorporate like equality or educating them on some of these things? I know 4 years old is little, but they also are watching a lot of things. They watch what you're doing and they see things, just being out and about and whatnot. So I'd be curious what things that you're choosing to do as a parent for them.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, like 4 years old is super young, but I remember a negative racial experience that I experienced at 4. And so it made it like super urgent, I guess, in our house to like do the right thing right away. So the way that looks like for us is obviously I'm not like sitting down and being like, okay, here's read
diagrams
and make me a graph. Like, no, it's what they're exposed to. So I make sure like whatever movies or shows that they watch, like that there's a diverse array of characters and experiences. Whether that's like showing a strong, like female lead or not glorifying like the helpless damsel in distress, showing like different, like kids of all sorts of different racial backgrounds, like in charge, not just as like not perpetuating like the funny black sidekick trope, that like, no, like the black kid can be in charge and the black kid can lead, and people like need to see that. Like my kids need to see that. And then also in the books that they read, my favorite thing is like when the kids are like reading through a book, that they'll point to someone and be like, that kid looks like me. And sometimes like, you're like, that kid looks nothing like you. So you ask them like, why do you say that? Like, what do you have in common? And it'll be something as simple as like, we both have blue eyes, or, cause one of my kids ended up with blue eyes, which was hilarious, and like light brown hair, like almost blonde. In the summer it goes blonde. So I'm like, what happened here? How did this happen? He's just like collecting. He's collecting all the recessive traits he could possibly do. I suppose my dad had blue eyes, so that makes sense, but it's just, it's so hilarious. Yeah. But like my daughter can like point to someone who has like curly blonde hair and be like, we both have curly hair. But like, I'm trying to make it so that like those differences are things that we can like celebrate, and that you can find things in common with people, even if you have like these things that are super different. Like Cora looks like copy paste me. Like she's got like warm brown skin, brown eyes, dark curly hair, but that she could find like something in common with like a blonde hair, blue eyed, curly haired girl. She's like, she's got hair like me. It's just, it's so cool to see that, or they'll see, this was the best. That I was watching the inauguration and Michelle Obama comes walking in, and that was a moment for the nation because she looked amazing. And my daughter is like, she looks like you. Mama, is that you? And I was like, oh, no, my goodness. Yes, it is me. No, it's not. But it was just so cool that she like saw like someone like with dark skin and was like, Mama, that you have that in common with her. Even though we look nothing alike. And Michelle's a queen and I'm not, but whatever. I'll get there.
You are a queen. That's so good though. It is so like pure for children that they don't know any different. And so being able to encourage that, celebrating the differences rather than seeing the differences and labeling them as something that's not beneficial or any, or like it's not going to really change anything. Like that's what it is. And so it's being able to celebrate it.
Yeah, it's so subtle. Like there was a study that was done. I think you can see this on YouTube actually. It's like they asked kids, like showed them a black baby doll and a white baby doll. And then they asked like white kids and black kids, like which one's the good one and which one's the bad one. And they almost all of them pointed to the black one as bad because they had never seen it portrayed as like neutral or good. Like they'd only seen it in like a negative instance, and never as like something positive. And so like these kids have like a bunch of like baby dolls of all different colors. And my daughter has she's got a few like black baby dolls that she takes good care of, but she also, for Christmas, I got her like a Mary doll, and like Mary has the same color skin as her. And like, like if I had grown up with that, like I could have saved so many years of like self-loathing and like just like had been at like such a different place. But it's really cool to be able to provide that for them.
Yeah, that's so important. And just doing those small things now, and as they're getting older too, just letting them grow into their own unique selves, but also giving them the framework of being a good human.
Yes.
a better human and everything.
Yeah. Just small intentional choices. Yeah.
Absolutely. So another question I had for you was, as a mother, just in general, what is a topic that you wish you would have known sooner about before having kids? that if you could tell women that are either going to be mothers someday or expecting or anything like that, what advice or what would you say if they wish they would have known sooner, whether that's looking into something or a certain topic or product?
Yeah, there's two different things. One is that your journey is your own. It's really easy with social media to like compare yourselves to other people and to their experience. Even if you have like, I'm in a due date group for people who had babies in November or December of 2016. Obviously, my kids were born in October, but like they were due in December. So our kids are like all on the same track. And it's just crazy how we have so many different experiences, even though our kids are within like the same, age range there. But our journeys are all our own. Like, obviously I'm the only person in that group who had quadruplets. Yeah. But there's all sorts of things that show up in there, all sorts of unique health issues and whatever. And obviously we can find like solidarity and community with one another, but no one knows this life as well as I do. And I don't mean that to be like some like insular thing, like turn inward and don't let anyone else in and just do your own thing. Like to like own that like, this is the path you're on and that's good. And that's okay. And even when it's hard, that like, you're not doing something wrong. Like you're a good mom because you are trying to do the best that you can. Like, it's really easy to like look back on ourselves, 5 years ago, 10 years ago and be like, oh, why'd you do that? But like, I have to remind myself, like, Justina, you're looking back on 25-year-old you or 20-year-old you with your 30-year-old eyes and your 30-year-old knowledge. And so I'd like to give myself more grace in that and to say like, I did the best that I could with what I had at that point, and to just like leave it. But like, you're going to make choices that you're going to look back on and be like, that was dumb. Why did I do that? Or why did I care so much about this one particular baby product when it didn't help at all? Or, you're doing the best that you can. The other thing that I would say is like, I had mentioned this before we started recording, that I'm very passionate about like pelvic floor therapy because it helped me a ton. I did it during my pregnancy and then I did it postpartum, and I had like endometriosis surgery a year ago. And so I did it after that. Like I've used it a lot, and it's prevented a lot of issues and been so helpful for me. And so I tell every mom that is within, a 10-foot radius of me, like, hi, guess what? You need to do this. And like Minnesota is like you don't need a referral necessarily for it, like to get access. Yeah. So like, just go do it. Like you could ask your doctor for a referral, 'cause I think that might make it easier, but whatever, just go do it. It's, there's nothing to be ashamed about. And you'd rather take care of those things before they become big problems.
Absolutely. Speaking from seeing a lot of women in both sides of the boat, of the ones that came in sooner or as more preventative, and then other women that unfortunately either didn't know about pelvic health, PT, or just waited and thought that they could kind of do it on their own, or just kind of thought like, oh, it'll just go away.
Or even worse, they think it's normal. Like they think like, oh, like I pee when I laugh or jump or whatever. That's just what happens when you have kids, or it hurts when I have sex. So that's just how it is. Like, no. Yeah, no. So if you're listening and that is something that's resonating with you, reach out. I can guide you into a direction of wherever you are in the country. There'll be some pelvic health PT that I can guide you towards, because there's a huge network. I feel like we're like an underground like system of like, there's so many practitioners out there. You just have to find the right one that fits best for you. And just like with any other specialty or different job or career, there's people that you might connect with more than another. So if you've tried it before and you didn't think it really helped, or you didn't really jive with the person, maybe try someone else. Because it's very important that you want to be taking care of your body in all aspects. Absolutely. Yes. I love that. That's really good advice too. Just that your journey is your journey, because it's very, very easy to, I think, compare in this day and age, whether that's through pregnancy things or afterwards too, of just like trying to have the perfect family or whatever that looks like. But just living in where you're at, whether it's messy or chaotic,
that's just life. And I love that you're journeying.
Because your kids are paying attention too. Your kids they're soaking that in too. So you want to just be present with them, and yeah.
That's so good. So 2 more questions for you. So the one is, as your kids are getting older, what have you had to do to transition, like mentally and physically, but more so mentally for as they're getting older, like now that they're, they're talking, they're having conversations with you, they're, starting to become more like little humans and
yes.
stuff like that. How has that changed? Because they're clearly, becoming human. So how have you shifted your approach with raising your kids? How have you and Matt kind of shifted that?
Well, before they were born, the thing that we really emphasized with each other, and then just, in their early moments there, that like they are 4 individuals and 4 unique individuals. They're fraternal. So that was very easy to explain to people. And so we've sort of carried that on. And so now, like, as they're 4 years old, they're very talkative. They, really know what they want and they will get it at any means. And so like, you have to, there's a lot more like conflict resolution that I'm doing these days, and negotiation with these kids. I mean, we moved this summer because an opportunity just sort of popped up, and we just decided let's do this. And so getting more space was really helpful for us. But one thing that I've been trying to do is like having one-on-one time with them. Because you can sort of tell like when a kid's not getting enough attention, they'll act out more. And you can miss things. One of my kids, we just sort of in a really proactive way, like had him evaluated for some sensory stuff, and got an ADHD diagnosis for him. And so that really helped us like understand, like, this is how he's processing stuff. This is why it seems like he's acting out. Like, why, like he's not a bad kid. He's just doing things differently and needs a different kind of attention than the others. The other things that we've done, trying to like instill like a lot of an emphasis on like emotional intelligence with the kids, like trying to sort of like, feelings aren't bad. Like telling them like, your feelings aren't bad. Like, that's how you feel. So like, what are you going to do with it? Like, what are you going to do with that feeling? Like, you're really mad. Like, let's talk about being mad instead of you like throwing that object at your brother. So a lot of that, like, just like, I'm having more, I would say that this is like the hardest stage of life that we've had with them. Like, the pandemic has definitely exacerbated that. But I think that like age 3, age 4 was just tough. Everyone talks about terrible 2s. That's a lie. 2 was delightful. And I had 4 of them, and it was delightful. I miss them being 2, but they're 4 and it's great. And they're going to get to go to school next fall. They were supposed to start this fall, but then the world set on fire. And so now they're home. But I think like recognizing their own individuality and helping them like navigate situations, because like they're future adults. Like, these are people, these are little tiny people that are going to be big people someday, and like have relationships of their own and families of their own and jobs of their own. And like, I want to be able to say like, I did the best that I could, and I'm trying really hard to just like instill like that good, like draw out that goodness, because like they're just like these pure sweet little babies. Even though the house is a mess and they claw at each other and yell at each other and fight, and they're not doing it because they want to be mean or because they're bad. They're doing it like, I read something. There's this Instagram account that's like I think it's like Little Big Feelings or something. Like, it's about like the toddler age. And they had this whole thing on like tantrums, and they're like, a toddler tantruming is like a sign of like a healthy child brain. And I was like, okay, one, that sucks. But two, okay, great. It's not my fault. Like they're just developing still. Like it's not because I can't get a grip on this kid. Like to not treat my kids as something to control, and like train, like, again, their future self, like they're going to be able to like reason and think for themselves someday. And so I want them to do that well and not out of like spite or resentment. Yeah.
Start learning while they can.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so good. So final question, but before we do that, if people want to get a hold of you or reach out or listen to your podcast, I will link them up in the show notes. So if you want to hear again the title, and if there's any other places that people can connect with you, if they want to continue on with hearing more about this conversation or anything like that you're excited about, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. That's your best bet. I'm at Justina Kopp on Instagram. And as for the project, our website isn't up and running yet, so I will wait with that. But if you follow me on Instagram, it will definitely be heavily advertised over there. But that's the Augustine 1606 initiative.
Lovely. Yes, those will all be in there. I'm so excited for you, Justina, with all of that, because that's going to be awesome stuff to get out there and spreading the word and just getting people more aware and educated and getting those, just getting a better understanding of a lot of that.
Yeah.
All right. So last question. You are in line at your local Starbucks and you don't have the kids with you right now. You have like a quiet morning that Matt's watching the kiddos and you're at Starbucks, and you're in line and there's a woman that's holding her kid and she's talking about how she's a new mom and she's struggling with staying healthy and finding a new routine as a mother. And she's like, "Hey, you look like you're a boss mom. What advice would you give? Because I'm struggling."
Okay. I would say, first of all, let's take a step back and a deep breath. Like, let's like be present right here. And then I would encourage her to, dig into her community and find a therapist, because those are the things that she's feeling and experiencing, like the stress and whatever, especially like in a pandemic. You're like everything's like level 100 right now, you know. And even though like parenthood is it is hard, like it's difficult, you know, it doesn't mean that you have to like just sort of trudge through it and like just barely survive. You know, I would encourage her, you know, like you get to work on yourself too along this path. Like it's not just for your kids. Like it would be cool to see you thrive and blossom throughout all of this too and come out better on the other end. I would encourage her to make time. I'm bad at this, and so I'm giving myself advice right now. Is to make time to move your body for like, even if it's like 10 minutes of just like stretching, you know, just like move your body and like pay attention and breathe and like do some like breath work there. I would highly encourage that. And to, for her to find what energizes her and to try to make space for that with like, if she's raising this child, like with a partner or spouse, to like communicate this to that person. And if she's not, like whoever her community is, like to whoever that next closest person is, to be like, I need help. I cannot keep going on at this current place. Like I might look like I'm doing it, but I am dying inside and I need help. It's a big, big, brave thing to say. It's a hard thing to say. There have been moments in my parenting journey here where I've had to say to my husband, like, Matt, I can't do this right now. And I need you to step in. Like, this is really tough. And Matt's an all-star dad. Like he is he is excellent. Like 10 out of 10, like just such a good father to those kids and a good supportive person for me. But, you know, I still need to communicate. Like I can't just assume that he's going to be like, she's dying inside.
Yeah. He can't read your mind as much as we think that our spouse
unfortunately, he cannot read my mind. So yeah.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, I hope so. Maybe the technology will will come through. How much therapy does a man need to be able to read his spouse's mind?
I love it. That is wonderful advice. And I think that mom that asked you hit the jackpot getting that advice from you. So that's wonderful. And Justina, I just appreciate your time today and for all of the advice and the courage and just bringing hope to mothers about kind of what's going on and how as chaotic as this world can be. And regardless of having 1 or 4 kids or however many kids, just being a mother and just raising those little humans. I just thank you so much for just everything that you shared today and just being so open and just providing some good information. And I'm just excited to see how your projects and everything and how the little ones grow up and they're going to be some awesome humans. I already know it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Postpartum Performance Podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to listen, learn, and grow. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you so much for being here. The aim of this podcast is to provide oodles of the best possible content to help empower women, eliminate the phrase, "I wish I would have known sooner" around pelvic health, and to encourage personal growth through the postpartum journey to becoming the best version of yourself. If you enjoyed the show and found the content helpful, please remember to subscribe to the podcast and leave a 5-star review. These subscriptions and reviews help other mothers discover the podcast. If you're a regular listener, thank you. I encourage you to tell a friend about us or post on social media sharing your favorite part for today's show. If you're looking for more content like this, please follow me on Instagram at Postpartum Performance. Remember, mothers, if you're seeking to live life strong, I'm here with you in your corner. Continue to be brave, stay strong, and live confidently.